So pregnancy update time. I am now in my 35th week, and I hit 35 weeks yesterday. I haven't updated you guys since week 25, 26. So it's been like 2 months, and I'm sorry. A lot has happened. Like, unbelievably, your appointments start tripling in the amount of times you have to go, and more tests and just tons of stuff, and then life in general and planning stuff. So anyways, I'm going to keep an eye on the time. If it's going too long and I'm not quite almost done, then I might break this up into 2 videos so that you aren't stuck watching 20-something minute video. But here we go. I have my planner with me just to keep me on track. Let's go back to the end of April. That's when I first updated you guys. I'm just going to go over significant things that happened. So, how many weeks would I be here? Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. I just had to figure out where I was. So for week 27, the only thing I really had that week was a specialist appointment. And the baby was weighing at 1 pound, 14 ounces. And it was pretty cool because I go every 2 weeks, and 2 weeks before that he was only 8 ounces. So he gained a lot of weight over that 2 weeks. So that was a good appointment. At this point, I don't have his percentile and all his stuff wrote down, but he had stayed, about the same. He was in the high 20th percentile. So then we hit 28 weeks, just my basic appointments. 29 weeks, I had another specialist appointment. And I also had another fetal echo because I don't know if you guys remember, but the last one, everything looked okay, but there was one part that had a shadow casted over it, and they couldn't really see, and they just wanted to see me back to confirm that there was no holes or anything there. So he had the fetal echo first, and he passed that, which was great news to know that his heart was looking excellent. And that's one of the signs of, or that's one thing that can be affected with a 2-vessel cord, is not, having heart deformities. And also heart deformity, I think the ratio or the percent is 70% of babies with Down syndrome have heart problems. So I don't know if you guys remember, I did have the Down syndrome scare, and I did get negative blood work for that back, but he does have a couple signs, but the heart is not one of them. So now his only Down syndrome signs are the absent nasal bone, and he's small, which, that could be related to the 2-vessel cord. Who's to say? But basically, this took off another Down syndrome risk that was a possibility, so it put the odds in our favor. Then we had a specialist appointment, and the baby weighed 2 pounds, 8 ounces. So he gained, what was that? A little over a half a pound or so. Yeah. So he gained again, and his percentile was still looking really good. Okay, so now I hit 30 weeks that Saturday. Nothing really interesting. Oh, that week was so crazy and stressful, you guys. It was baby shower planning madness, and my mother-in-law was throwing it, and it was all set for a place. Invitations had been out for months, and then last minute, due to drama and a complicated story, which I won't burden you guys with, we didn't end up having the place. So I had to spend this whole week stressed out trying to find another place and trying to get the address change out to all of the guests. And you know, it was really hard to find. I don't know if you've ever tried to book a baby shower at a venue before, but to find somewhere that was available that last minute and something that was in the budget and all this stuff, it was just crazy. But somehow it all came together, and on May 30th, I was 31 weeks, and I also had my baby shower that day. I'm going to try to add some pictures of it at the end so you guys can see the cake. It was really nice, and we had tons of gifts, and everyone who was important was there. And yeah, it was really great. There was, of course, drama on the day, and not everything went right, but you know, I kind of almost had a breakdown a couple times. Just your emotions are on hiatus already, and then when things go wrong, it just makes it worse. And you know, especially when you weren't even supposed to be the one all stressed out throwing your party. But anyways, all in the past now. It was bad that week though. See, so now you guys are starting to see why I couldn't do an update that week like I was supposed to. So that was that weekend. June 2nd, we had another specialist appointment, and the baby, let's see, he gained a half a pound, and that brought him to 3 pounds. So as of June 2nd, he was weighing 3 pounds. Hold on. Excuse me. And everything, the cord and blood flow looked really good. I spoke with my periodontologist at that appointment, and she explained that, you know, being high risk, that at this point we would be starting NSTs, non-stress tests, where they strap a monitor to the baby's heartbeat, and then they strap another monitor on you for your uterus to look for uterine contractions. And basically it just lets them know if the baby is in any form of distress. And of course, if with him being small and the cord issue, I have even more of a reason for him to possibly be in distress. So they decided to start NSTs at 32 weeks. So that was all going on at this appointment. Pretty much they had been telling me this whole time that with him being small and his growth problem, that, you know, my first goal was to get to 34 weeks and to try to, you know, see his growth continuing every time I went. And, you know, that was like my goal, was to see him just progressing and doing okay with all the testing. So at this point, I'm still thinking, you know, come on, baby, keep growing, because I want him to stay in me longer than 34 weeks. I am a firm believer in being at least 30, you know, 37 plus, if not, I mean, of course, the higher the better, but I did not want him coming before 37 weeks. So that Monday, June 8th, my NSTs started. It was a pretty rough day because I went in all excited thinking that, oh, NST is great. You know, I'm going to know that he's all right in there, and, you know, that's what it's supposed to be for. And I don't even know why they call it a non-stress test. It should be called stress test because, I mean, you're laying there strapped up. You have this like clicker thing. So every time you feel the baby, you hit the button. What they're looking for is an increase of 15. They find your flat rate, his heart rate, his average or whatever. So say his average is 140, then they want to see, you know, so many movements within a certain amount of time with his heart racing after he makes a movement at least over 15 beats. So say he moves, he was at 140, the movement they're hoping sparks his heart rate to go up at least 15 beats to 155. And if the baby's heart isn't cooperating, they see that something isn't right, he's in distress, he's sleeping too much, he's whatever, and you know, they go from there. Normally this is a 20 to 30 minute test. this day I was there for an hour and a half. And they eventually, after an hour and a half, gave me the go-ahead to go ahead and leave, but almost reluctantly. They were concerned because he just didn't seem active enough. His heart was only going up by 10 beats instead of 15, so it didn't seem like quite enough of a jump for them, and they just really weren't content with it. Finally, the doctor came in. He's like, you've been on here an hour and a half, and I do see a couple, 15 beats jumps, and he let me go. I kind of felt nervous and not sure. That was my first time going, and it was scary. It was very emotional too. I have these 2 times a week, so Mondays and Thursdays, and kind of was just eager for Thursday to get here because, leaving the doctors with things like that made me really worried. And I just kept those next couple days, I was just constantly, making sure I felt him and just extra cautious just because, they made it seem like something was not right. They did say that, however, that babies do have, different sleep patterns, and we could have just caught him at a bad time and, tried to ease my mind. So anyways, I went back on Thursday for another NST, and I was on it again for a very long while. He never got to the point where he considered him, as a pass. He never could do it, and they sent me straight to labor and delivery, and it was pretty scary. You never know what to expect, and they do this thing called a biophysical profile, BPP, and basically they look for your baby's basically being tested, and they have to score a certain amount of points on this scale, looking for things like they're looking for him to be practicing breathing, they're looking for his fluid level, they're looking at his heart rate and his movements. So each thing is worth 2 points. So the goal is to get 8 out of 8 points, or for the baby to get 8 out of 8 points from the test, and they have to pass it within 30 minutes. So I had one of those, and at this particular tech at the hospital wouldn't let me see the screen at all. So that was nerve-wracking. I'm just laying there and she's got the screen all faced towards her, and I couldn't see, and that was kind of, but, it went by kind of fast, and basically you're just laying there, and they're doing it all on ultrasound, and it's just, kind of sucks that you can't see what's going on, and, I guess it is what it is, and she left, and then the labor and delivery lady came back in and told us, that he did pass 8 out of 8 points. So that was really good news. She put me back on the NST at the hospital, thinking that, okay, maybe he's awake and, he'll do what they were looking for now. And he still didn't pass the NST, but I guess in their eyes, the biophysical trumps the NST because it's more accurate and they can see in there and, whatever. So we were there a couple hours that time, and they discharged me, and I was able to go home, thankfully, because at that point I was 32 weeks, and I was not ready to be stuck in the hospital. Too much to do. That weekend I hit 33 weeks, and we put up the crib that weekend. That was a fun day. Cribs are pretty easy to put together. It was a lot easier to put together the crib than it was to put together the dresser. I can definitely say that. My husband was doing all of the work, but you could just tell that the crib was way easier. But anywho, I might go ahead and stop there, and that stops me at 33 weeks, and then I'll go ahead and make one for 34 to 30, almost, I guess I should finish it. 33 weeks. Monday, NST, and had to go. The same thing happened again. He didn't pass. I was rushed back to labor and delivery That was June 15th. He had to do another biophysical profile. This time I was actually put into a room on the labor and delivery floor, and I was like, man, they really aren't letting me out of here this time. And he did so good on his biophysical profile that they surprisingly let me go again. And that was a shocker. It was pretty cool too, because this lady actually showed me the screen and she was showing me how he was practicing breathing. And yeah, it was very, very cool to watch. Another interesting thing that happened on that day was I've been going to specialists since I was 11 or 12 weeks along. And they have always, well, the first 2 times I went to my specialist, they said they saw a nasal bone, no problem. And I don't know if you guys have been watching me that long, but yeah, it was kind of confusing because then after those first 2 appointments, they said absent nasal bone. And then the lady who did the biophysical at the hospital this day, she said I asked her out of curiosity just because she was being so nice, and she was saying that she saw one just fine, and she said clear as day, and she was showing us, you know, from the side, from the front, and I'm just like, at that point, highly, highly confused because, you know, how can she be seeing something and then the specialists are telling me it's not there, well, anymore. They told me they had seen it. It's just like, I don't know why they even bother telling me anymore, because it's so back and forth and it just makes you, you know, kind of get your hopes up. And then the next day I went to the specialist and told her about what happened at the hospital, and she was like, oh no, there's no way there's a nasal bone on here, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, she had very clear shots and it looked like a, you know, because bone is like white on ultrasound. And I said it was glowing very bright white, you know, bone color on his nose. And she's like, well, I'd have to see pictures. And then she kind of went back and corrected herself and was like, if there is one there, it's a very short one. And I'm just like, listen, lady, you know, don't get all butthurt because you might be wrong. You know, it was ridiculous. But so I was talking to the tech about that Monday, or no, that was Tuesday, excuse me. He weighed 3 pounds, 13 ounces. So he gained almost a whole pound over that course of 2 weeks, which was exciting. I talked to my specialist. I got to see the doctor that day and was telling her about all of his issues with the NSTs and stuff like that. And she didn't really tell me anything new. Basically, just make sure you're eating before you go, and, you know, make sure you cough and you're drinking, you know, something cold while they're doing the test. And I guess, you know, that's supposed to aggravate the baby to wake him up to pass it. But, you know, kind of, you know, basically she was just like, as long as he keeps growing and everything looks okay and he's passing the biophysicals, we, you know, are okay to leave him in there even though he's not passing the NSTs. And basically she said also that babies who aren't quite 34 weeks, they have a hard time passing the NSTs anyways. So she kind of just wrote it off, you know, but that Thursday I had another NST, but I was so exhausted that I actually slept right through it. So I missed that one. And I called them to ask if they wanted me to come in the next day since I had missed it. And they told me not to worry about it as long as I felt him moving. That Saturday I hit 34 weeks, which, as you guys, you know, that was my big initial goal, was to hit 34 weeks with him still growing. So it was kind of, you know, made me feel good that he had hit that point and was still looking good. Monday, the 22nd, I had another NST, and we were there like an hour, and the only difference was the NST was later in the day rather than earlier like the other ones, and he passed it. He had accelerations and all the stuff that he didn't have in the other ones, and they let me go. We were still there about an hour and a half, but they were really confident to let me go, and they weren't worried. So that was good. That was, you know, this past week, this Monday. And then we went back on Thursday, And the same thing happened on Monday, except, you know, we had a morning appointment. And he did it with, you know, it took him longer, but eventually showed them enough to let me leave. So I haven't had to go back to labor and delivery for about a week and a half, knock on wood. And I'm hoping it stays that way because it's really scary. And, you know, we hit 35 weeks yesterday. And like I said, you know, I really want to hit 37 plus before I'm stuck in the hospital or, God forbid they, you know, want him born, because she said basically they would make that decision if they felt like ultimately he would be doing better on the outside. He would be better off on the outside of me than inside. So that would be the only time they would force me to have him born. But, yeah, so Monday, tomorrow, I have another NST in the morning. We'll see how that goes. And then Tuesday, I have a specialist appointment where they check his growth and his weight. Kind of eager for this because 2 weeks ago at that specialist appointment, his percentage had dropped and he had went down to the 15th percentile. And if you drop to 10 or below, they want, you know, you in the hospital for constant monitoring. So I'm just kind of hoping that he grew a lot over the course of the past 2 weeks and he doesn't drop below that 10th percentile, because, you know, that would, you know, being stuck in the hospital at 35 weeks, that's definitely not what I want or what anybody would want, you know, to be in there for a month or, God forbid, it, you know, his growth delayed too much and they wanted to have him born really early. That would be scary. So, yeah, that's Tuesday. And then, of course, another NST on Thursday. And then that Saturday, I hit 36. So that's what's coming up for me tomorrow through Saturday. And, yeah, just basically getting really nervous, taking it one day at a time, worrying about him a lot, always making sure I stop and feel for him. Ever since these NSTs started, it's been really stressing me out. And yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. I did forget, which I'm going to have to go out of order here. Sorry about that. It must not have been wrote down in my planner, but I had my second glucose test around week 28 or at 28 weeks. Yep. And I went in there to try to do that, and I ended up drinking the stuff, got my first fasting draw, and I was in the room for an hour waiting, and I got up to go do my second draw, and I was walking down the hallway to go, you know, have her pull my blood again. I was almost done, and I like projectile vomited. It was so embarrassing, and I couldn't believe it. I was so mad. I was like, man, I just sat in there with this stuff in me this whole time, and you know, for me to get sick with it, and just your stomach just is a lot more sensitive when you're further along, because I passed the other one earlier, you know, I think that was in the beginning of second try, no problem, like very easily. And this one, yeah, that stuff did not agree with me. But what my office, instead of having me redo it, they did this other thing where I would come in, they would do a fasting draw, they would let me eat breakfast or whatever time, breakfast, lunch, dinner, that I was there. And then I would hang out for an hour, they would redraw me. And as long as I fell into a certain bracket of numbers, they considered it a pass. And I had to pass 3 different times. And I did that with no problems. So I really don't think it was the issue of the sugar. It was just my stomach could not stomach that glucose drink again. And I even like really tested the theory just to make sure, because gestational diabetes is nothing to play with, and I wanted to make sure I did not have it. So the first draw, I actually went and had like a hash brown and some kind of breakfast sandwich from McDonald's, which loaded with sugar, all that bread and whatever breaks down to sugar. And I waited my hour and I had a draw, and it was really good. So I know my body is processing it well, and, you know, like I said, I passed all 3 draws and no concern. I'm really happy they had an alternative, because if they were like, you need to redo the test, the glucose test where you drink the stuff again, I would have been like, no, not happening. I don't know if you guys have had similar experiences, but that was bad. Yeah, so I think that's everything. I only went on for 25 minutes. See, I should have broken this into 2 videos. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. I'm going to try to update more frequently for the weeks coming, just because, you know, a lot of decisions will be happening very soon, and yeah, just everything's really crazy right now. So yeah, I hope all is well with you guys. And I'm glad to see that a lot of you enjoyed that how PCOS has affected my pregnancy video that I put up last week. And if you have any other video requests, let me know. And I want to make a video about how I feel, how I'm feeling right now about labor and stuff like that, just so kind of, you know, so I could look back on it after the fact and be able to see all my emotions and how I felt approaching all of this. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything. If you yourself are suffering with possible markers for Down syndrome, or you have the 2-vessel cord or bicornuate uterus, please feel free to message me and tell me about your experiences. I constantly Google and YouTube to try to find people with similar stories as me, because it's just a lot on my mind and I worry a lot, and it's nice to hear success stories. So, all right, you guys, have a great one. Bye.